It's been an early start in Otepaa at the Junior World Championships, and the men's relay due off very shortly for the under-21s. And Norway ranked #1, having won the event last year. Russia wearing 2, Germany 3, France 4, and Kazakhstan outsiders wearing bib number 5. Well, a fascinating women's race, much tighter than expected. Norway in the end coming through to take the victory, and the Norwegian junior men will be wanting to do exactly the same. Mike, the standard of these men compared to World Cups?
Well, Patrick, they're there or thereabouts. In fact, many of them racing or will be racing in World Cup, I'm quite sure, in their time, but still a little young for being called up regularly into the World Cup frame.
So, bib number 1, the Norwegians. Emil Iversen taking the first leg for them. Hasn't had a medal so far at these championships. This is his big chance. Away they go, and it's a 4x5 kilometre. It's fast and furious. The winning time will almost certainly be under the hour for the full 20k. We're looking probably at around 53 to 55 minutes, depending on the snow conditions. And a good move there from Gleb Redvik of Russia, Mike. Straight in front of the Norwegians, trying to take control of the pace.
Well, that was interesting. He deliberately stepped in front of the Norwegian, but now he looks like he's happy to take second place. So move to the left of the Norwegian, Iversen.
Yeah, everyone trying to move over to the left to get a better line for the first corner. Switzerland with Von Tobel up alongside the Norwegians, but it's Iversen who just has that, 20-centimetre advantage.
Must be a lot of pressure, Patrick, on the Norwegians. Just obviously earlier this morning seen the girls team take the victory. They are the reigning champions. There's a lot of pressure there coming with wearing the red suit.
Just looking at Iversen, slightly hunched posture for his double pole, a little bit like Toby Angerer of Germany, who of course is a 2-time overall World Cup winner. Just doesn't look so relaxed. And moving into the front, that must be the French, and a good start from them. Alexis Généraux, their quartet, Tarantola, Jay, Renard Jay, that is, and Paul Golabre.
Well, it's settled down a little bit. That was an intense first 1 minute, mainly double poling. Now just settling your pace and trying to get into the stride. The legs coming more into action now.
Twice round a 2.5 kilometre loop, and well, they're into the first big climb. In fact, there is only one big climb on the 2.5 loop, so I guess if you add them together, 2 severe climbs, both around 38-39 meters of height. Tiny little descent before they start climbing again, coming up towards the 1 kilometre mark now. 2 minutes on the clock, and certainly no attempt to break clear in the early stages.
Not at all. I did notice, Patrick, that Iversen there, he was slipping on the previous climb, but well, his wax is looking all right there. Often it can be the technical issue if you don't transfer your weight completely onto each ski.
Team 17, Estonia with Mattis Yama. 15 at the back of the field, that's the Canadians, Russell Kennedy. And of course the Canadians will be looking forward to the under-23s race a little later on, because they've got one of the World Cup stars racing.
Oh, that's going to be great. Alex Harvey, yes, coming in to do the one race here. And well, he's got competition there. Of course, he's got Belov, the big Russian, will be chasing him down. They both did the Tour de Ski and did very, very well.
Do you think he's requested to race, or do you think it's team orders? Let's get a gold medal at the Junior Worlds. I'm
not sure. He has won gold medals before at the juniors, the junior category, but maybe just wants one more before he leaves this age group, the under-23s.
Well, certainly that. Or is it all about preparation for the World Championships, which of course take place in Holmenkollen at the end of next month?
Yeah, there's still a way to go before the first race is up there. What is it, the 24th of February? But certainly on these tracks, and of course there's no altitude here, so it's only, what, 150 meters above sea level. Maybe just wants another run out over the double pursuit distance of 30 kilometers. The pace here, Patrick, it really has settled. We saw the mad dash from the line. It's now got into a little routine. I would imagine the second 2.5 kilometers is going to be an all-out attack.
Yeah, it's very easy for the first leg runners just to think they've just got to stay with the pack and their job is done. But there will be teams who've put their best runners first and therefore need to try and break clear. Slightly surprised that the Americans have put their best last, because the chances are that they're going to be out of the running by the time they get through to that fourth leg, and Eirik Bjornsson is going to have an almighty job to try and catch up with the leaders. Often, Mike, if you're in the second rank, you know, you're expected to come between 5th and 10th. Not a bad idea to put your best runners first and get them feed off the stronger skiers.
Do you know, I think so, and the way we see these races being run now, if you're not in the pack and you lose some distance, it's so difficult to pull that negative time back. So quite often the teams are putting it strongest to weakest. Of course, you need a good anchor person if you can, someone who can certainly sprint if it's head-to-head to the line.
Yeah, the Norwegians have certainly done that. They put Sindre Bjornstad's score, goes on the last leg, a man from Bærum in Norway, and he, of course, the gold medalist from the 10-kilometre.
We were just thinking there, looking at all these athletes, what amazes me at just 19-year-old, there's all the nations have got their athletes to such a high level. It used to be, well, Russia, Norway, Sweden, but now so many nations are putting it together at this age.
Yeah, and they've all got one or two very good skiers, but I think as we get to the halfway stage, as we saw in the women's, that's when it will really spread out. First 2.5 completed, one more lap to go for the first leg, and it's Norway still with the lead, but nothing really significant. But it looks, as they go through the stadium, that Emil Iversen has turned it up. He's decided he's going to go for broke on the second 2,500 metres, and the rest have got to do what they can to stay with him.
Well, what a turnaround there, you're right. It was almost like the psychological bell went, and he thought, right, I have to take this red suit way ahead of the rest.
Yeah, Brovold, who takes the next leg for Norway, will be delighted with that response from Iversen. Maybe a word in the ear for the Norwegian first leg runner. Get a move on. We want a lead of 10-15 seconds. Well, he's going to have to work for it. Italy not so far off the pace, some 11.5 seconds down behind the leaders, and there are the chasing group. Iversen out on his own at the moment, Mike, and with the other 6-7 teams working together, I think we'll find that slim lead is eaten up fairly quickly.
You sense that it is going to be Iversen looking over his shoulder there, just trying to sense what's happening behind him.
Just trying to pick out the Russians. They're wearing bib number 2. They don't have the traditional Russian suit that has a flash of red on it. In fact, they're in about 5th or 6th place. Nicely positioned. Redivik has not panicked as yet. And of course, Russia with the sprint gold medalist taking leg number 2, Sergei Ustigov. And he certainly should be able to do something over the 5K distance.
Absolutely. And it looks like it's the German, Florian Notz, that's deciding to make the move. He couldn't quite get past the Frenchman ahead of him, so he had to go wide on the right-hand track.
Iversen, a very strong double polar. He too has elected to hold the elbows high to the side. Not only is it physiologically, you can move the arms a bit quicker. I don't think, Mike, it brings the major muscle groups into play quite as much, the lats and the triceps, but it does allow you to have a very quick, snappy arm action. That's what we've seen from Petter Northug over the years.
It is, and Iversen, when you compare, say, to the Petter Northug doesn't quite drop the head as low, and well, that is related to tempo. So Iversen going for the long reach in the double pole.
Well, the traditional Scandinavian style, beautiful skiing here, that subtle, sharp drop of the weight to compress the ski onto the snow, and he's getting positive grip from the skis now, having slipped early on. And Iversen is being chased. Russia are the team that are starting to come back. Good work from Redikov. Very nice indeed. Team 14 skiing well above their expected level. Dominik Baldauf of Austria. Louis Stadlober on the second leg, a famous name amongst the Austrian team, Stadlober.
Well, this is certainly this turn of pace has got rid of the less strong first leg athletes. Oh, bit of a trip there from the Russian.
Finland moving up wearing 6. That's Ladamaki, who was 20th in the sprint. He was a full minute off the, not in the sprint, in the 20th in the 10-kilometre freestyle. He was a full minute behind, but he prefers the classic, and that's why he's been elected to race leg number 1. First 2 legs in classic style. Mike, traditionally the classic goes first, just as it does in the pursuit races. Is there any argument for having it the other way round, with the freestyle legs first?
It's an interesting argument. I think traditionally, because classic was the original style, and then when it came to when skating was introduced in the in fact the late 70s, early 80s, but really came into World Cup racing 85, I suppose they just said, well, we'll do the 2 classic legs first and put the skating last.
I think the original argument was because they didn't have so many tracks available. If you classic on a skating track, it doesn't damage the tracks. If you skate on a classic track, it destroys the tracks, and therefore the classic was best to get out the way first. But nowadays, all these resorts have such wide tracks and so many areas that they can use that I can see no reason why they couldn't reverse the order and actually put the favour on the classic style. Well, that little burst from Iversen at the 2.5-kilometre stage has certainly split the group, but he's not got clear. Russia, Austria, France have managed to stay with the Norwegians, and so it sets us up for an interesting finish on this first leg. Through the woods, working their way to the top of the final climb, and then they descend down to the stadium for that first exchange. Iversen will hand over to Brovold, a man from Tinset in Norway who's had 2 very good races, 2 top 10 results already. Russia have Ustigov on the second leg, and Ustigov is one of the highest ranked skiers, but Germany with Thomas Wick, who comes from Zella-Melis, which was formerly East Germany. He is a very, very quick classic skier indeed, and he takes leg 2 for Germany. So the Germans might be able to fight their way back into this one.
Well, you mentioned that. Thomas Wick finished 4th at his national championships, and that's the race which Tobias Angerer won just a couple of weeks ago, in fact. So he certainly is up there with the best in the world.
Norway, France, Russia, Austria and Finland are the teams that have broken clear, and there's a gap of some 75 metres back to the next group of skiers.
It seems like it's Iversen's double poling power. When the group got him back again, he went into, of course, it was a flatter section, he went into his very strong double poling. Look at him at the front there. That's where he's managed to separate by, what, 4 seconds, 5 seconds?
There's absolutely no doubt that he has been watching Petter Northug, and he's learned from the great champion, who of course dominated the Olympic Games and has proved himself not only to be a sprinter but to be a fantastic distance racer when it's a mass start, because he's got the psychology, the mental approach to destroy, to grind people down. Iversen coming into the exchange. Brovold is ready. Away go Norway. They have a lead, but it is only 2.6 seconds over the French, and France now with just looking to see who's taking the second leg for the French. It is Tarantola, Damien Tarantola. What a great name. And he's got to try and close down that 15-metre gap or so. Russia in 3rd, and for Russia we have Ustigov. And it's not going to be long before Russia overtake the French. Look at that. What a start from Ustigov. He's got to be careful, though. If he starts pumping the lactate around the body, he will not survive the second lap.
That's an incredible start from the Russian, but well, that's the thinking is close the gap down quickly and then just sit on the tails of the skis of the Norwegian.
Canada off the pace. They could do with Pierre Harvey, or Alex Harvey rather. Pierre Harvey would probably still be able to keep up with these guys. Second leg of the men's 4x5 kilometre relay at the Junior World Championships. And, well, a fairly brutal pace set by the Norwegians on the second lap of that first leg. And that was what split the group down into 5 teams. Russia, France, Norway 1, 2, 3. Finland and Austria 4 and 5. And I guess, Mike, this is going to turn out to be a battle between the 2 great cross-country nations, Norway and Russia.
It's looking that way at the moment. Sweden, I thought, may have been able to stick with the pace, and who knows, might close the gap with Svensson, Daniel Svensson in second, taking the second leg here. Finland as well, ahead of their perceived ranking, in fact going to the front of the field.
Yeah, Brovold of Norway taking it very steady indeed, certainly in no panic. We've got Leivo Niskanen for Finland, who finished 15th in the 10-kilometre freestyle. Didn't race in the pursuit, but Niskanen has certainly taken hold of this race. He's gone into the front, he's pushed the pace. He really wasn't interested in the other teams catching up. I think that's a good move, whereas the Norwegians with Brovold, I think, on the same tactics as we saw from Iversen, which is take the first 2.5 steady and then start to push the pace.
It seems strange to slow it, to want to slow it down, because all you're then going to do is allow the Swedes to get into it, the Italians to get into this mix at the front. So surely now the pace has to be kept strong.
Louis Stadlober on course for Austria. Good performance by the Austrians so far. Then they have Max Hauker on the first of the freestyle legs, and Niklas Liederer takes the last. And I think the Austrians certainly fancy their chances of getting a medal. If they're in contention at the end of the second leg, I think we could see Austria going for a bronze.
Well, that would be quite special if they did. And I think we mentioned earlier, certainly in biathlon, of course, the national team do so well. Cross-country, they're developing at school level. And this is, today's result is reflecting that investment of money and education with sport.
What about the French? Tarantola there on the right-hand side in the black and yellow. Do they stand a chance of taking the victory here? Well, they were 4th last time round, and they finished 6th back in 2008 when they were in Schlinig, the championships held in Italy that year. So possible, but I think outsiders, and it's a question of strength in depth. Now, Reynard Jay, is that a relation of Vincent Jay?
I think he could well be, actually, because, well, Vincent is now 25-year-old, coming up 26, and of course winning his gold medal at the Olympic Games in the sprint last year, well, biathlon sprint, which is 10 kilometres. But the French team, as soon as you put them in a relay, they've got this incredible, and it seems to go all the way down the line, from the national team to the juniors. There's an incredible team spirit, maybe even richer than most of the other teams. Raise their game in the relay every time.
So 7.5 kilometres completed. That means we're halfway through the second leg, and if the Norwegians hold true to form so far, they'll start to push the pace. But it's the Russians who've broken clear on the transitions through the stadium. That was a very smart move from Sergei Ustikov, and he's stolen 10 metres, and he's pushing. Now this is exactly what Iversen did on the first leg. He got 15-20 metres clear, but then as soon as they came to the first uphill, Mike, he found the strength had gone from his arms, and the remaining teams caught up.
Well, maybe the same's going to happen here for the Russian, but do you know what, Patrick? I love the spirit. In World Cup racing, we don't see, I was going to say random strategies like this, but just the flair that these young athletes have got. They're just thinking, well, I can go for it, I'm going to go for it, I don't really care how much I suffer later.
Yeah, Ustikov, he's a class act. He's just recently picked up 3 medals at the Russian national championships. Yes, they're in age groups, but to be winning medals at that level means that you will be competitive on the world stage, because they have something like 1.5 million competitive cross-country skiers. Compare that to Britain and it's laughable, but compare it to Norway and you still find that the Russians are miles ahead in terms of numbers.
Well, numbers matter, don't they, when you've got that competitive base? So I think you're right. When you take it right, the depth of great 17-year-olds, 18-year-olds, 19-year-olds in Russia must outweigh the rest of the strong nations in cross-country skiing.
Now, reading Brovold's body language here, Mike, the Norwegian, he hasn't really upped the pace, and I just wonder whether he's happy to see the Russians get away or whether we're seeing a tactical move, and he's just keeping the pace steady until we get to the uphills, and then we may see an injection of pace from the Norwegian team.
Do you know, I think Brovold is tired, Patrick. Yesterday, the 20-kilometer pursuit race, he finished 9th, and of course he gave a fantastic 6th position in the 10K free on the first day of racing. Maybe fatigue is in his body. Well, clearly it is at this time.
Yeah, Brovold, in fact, only finished some 15 seconds down on the Russian, and the Russian absolutely storming away. Ustugov finished 8th in that pursuit yesterday.
Oh, look at this. This is a great feeling. Ustugov, he sensed that he should try it at the halfway to see if he could get rid of them. He's destroyed them.
Yeah, nice technique as well. Very typically Russian. Head down, upper body forward, lots of upper body strength, but the legs working efficiently as well. Now Finland starting to move into second place.
Oh, slipping there from the Finn, from Niskanen. Brovold, that's it. Certainly he's not flowing, he's tightening up, he's not able to extend, but look at this, big momentum at the front.
Well, I've always thought that Brovold is a better freestyle skier, but the Norwegians with Rundgren and Skor didn't really have any option but to put Brovold on the classic leg. And he's got a bit of a habit of not finishing classic races, which if your skis don't work well, the temptation is always just to pull out of the race. But it's not a good attitude to get into.
Well, coaches certainly don't like that. Yes, you're going to have a bad day. Of course you are. It's like any other day. But in classical skiing, if the wax isn't working, it's so frustrating. But I don't think it's a bad habit to start pulling out of races.
Yeah, Ustugov just pulling further and further ahead of the rest of the field. The Russians, who won in 2008 and in 2009, they missed out last year, took the silver medal behind the Norwegians, but it looks, even at this stage, without the halfway stage reached, that Russia are going to reverse the tables this time round. What is the gap? At least 9 seconds. 10.5 to Finland and almost 15 to the Norwegians.
Well, it looks like just as he passed the camera, Brovold has decided that this is the last dice that he can throw. He has to give absolutely everything now to maintain the 15 seconds. Yeah, 1,400 meters to go. He could wind that up. 4 minutes of hard work. It's got to hurt if he wants to get Norway back into this one. Austria have dropped to 5. Sweden closing on the Austrians, but losing on the Russians, who are putting in a devastating sprint up front. Germany 7, Italy 42 seconds behind. And in distance terms, we're looking at the Italians some 200 meters, maybe even 220 behind the Russians at the moment. This is a tough time for Brovold. He needs to keep it strong to keep Norway in 3rd place. Finland, that's a great performance, I think, from Niskanen.
Yeah, it looks as though Leivo Niskanen is starting to close in on Russia. Maybe the angle of the camera foreshortening the distance, but another little burst from Sergei Ustugov. The sprint junior world champion is going to show us what he can do over 1,000 meters, and that could be devastating as far as the result of this relay goes. Kuliev and Kaitiev ready, lined up to take legs 3 and 4 for the Russians, and still Brovold not really looking as light on his feet as he did in the pursuit yesterday.
No, not at all. Ustugov, that would be interesting to walk away from these championships with 2 golds if they do win the relay today.
Now, this is interesting, Mike, because Brovold has the traditional double poling technique with the elbows much closer to the side, and you can see how much slower the tempo is.
It's incredible, but you're talking about a recovery cycle in the double pole. He's not really allowing himself much of a recovery, unlike the explosive dynamic initiating the pace, the force early, if you like, on the poles. He seems to be slowly putting the poles behind him all the time.
Yeah, looks great for a 90-kilometer race, but not for a 5-kilometer relay.
Has to be dynamic, all dynamic movements.
Finland working really hard. This is a good effort from Niskanen, and Antti Ojansivu is ready to go on the third leg for the Finns. The margin when we last saw it was just under 10 seconds. Russia 24:48 through the clock and out on leg number 3, the first of the 3-star legs. And expect this to be fast, because when you build a lead of over 10 seconds, you have to capitalize it. He has no choice but to go hard from the gun.
That's a very tight right-hander after 100 meters here, and Kulev nearly tripped himself up.
Look at that, Mike. Norway losing another 7 seconds in the last 600 meters. Brovold a spent force, and he's made Rundgren's job very, very tough indeed. Norway have their best skier going last, but then again, Russia have Denis Kaitiev. That will be an interesting match. First for Skar in the 10-kilometer freestyle, and 11th for the Russian. And he took, I'll try and find out exactly how much time he took out of the Russian. He took 41 seconds over the 10-kilometer distance. So if Norway can get back to within 20 seconds, they might still stand a chance. Italy and Japan in 8 and 9. Not a bad run from the Japanese. One or two good Japanese performances of late, Mike.
There certainly have been, and Japan as a nation, of course, they staged the World Cups, the Olympic Games, way back in 1972.
Leg 3 of the junior men's relay here in Otepaa. And what fantastic facilities they have here now, Mike. Of course, these races taking place on the back of the World Cup events that were here in bitterly cold conditions 10 days ago. -20, -21. They still got the racing underway. But there's something special about racing in Otepaa. Classic is the traditional technique. But what is so fantastic is the number of people that come to watch, and they don't go to the stadium. They want to be out on the track supporting the skiers.
It's a different atmosphere compared to many World Cups, as you say, when they're out on the track at the furthest away point. All they're here for is to support the athletes, and all these younger athletes racing today certainly watch the championships or the World Cups on these tracks. Of course, the tracks aren't quite as severe as at World Cup racing, but just the whole Otepaa, the name of these tracks, it lifts your desire to race here for sure.
Having said that, the Estonians who've had a run of success with men like Jakmai, Milala, who are so good at classic, I don't see the future for them. I haven't seen any youngsters coming through and dominating. The Estonians, Team 17, they finished 17th last year. There's no one in their quartet who is as yet of world class.
I am quite surprised when you have Verpelu and Jakmai as role models, and they have been for many years. It's really surprised me that Estonia haven't lifted their game in terms of development. I know there's many clubs here. I know they love cross-country skiing, but they haven't put that knowledge right down to the juniors.
Yeah, and of course hosting the one of the Loppet races, as it's called, Tartu. We're in fact Otepaa, for those of you that aren't so familiar with the geography of Estonia, Tallinn up the north end of the country, Otepaa right down the south, slightly east of central, and about 80 k's or so south of Tartu, which is where the Loppet race starts. Good conditions this year for Loppet racing, pretty much across Europe. Just that one warm spell at the beginning of January after the big freeze that played havoc with some of the Alpine World Cup races. But we just got back from Antolz in Italy. Fantastic conditions there, provided you went above 1,500 meters.
That's right. The snow base still good down there. And it's been a strange season, so much variety. Of course, the deep freeze in November, December, in fact most of the way through December. A lot of rain then after Christmas.
Well, another quick plug for Britain's efforts this afternoon. We're looking forward to seeing Andrew Musgrave in the under-23 pursuit event. That will be the last event of the Junior World Championships. Wouldn't it be sensational if he could get another top 10 result? Of course, he'll be thinking in terms of medals, Mike. How realistic is that?
I honestly believe, and as you say, Andrew will be thinking in those terms. He came 6th in the 10K free. That's his stronger arm. If he can stay with it in the Classic, and if he's with that lead group, he is such a fighter. I think that he will take himself to an even more painful place today to try and get himself on the podium, and I really believe he can.
Yeah, I remember him as a 9-10-year-old, and he was still taking on Olympic skiers at that age, fancy, and often beating them over 20 metres.
Incredible, yeah, and it's a great day for British cross-country skiing. Roy Young and the team, and of course the girls going later as well. Fiona Hughes, Sarah Young.
Well, halfway through leg number 3, and Russia still in control of this junior men's relay. Norway getting victory in the women's a little earlier on today in some style. The Russians have broken away at the halfway stage, all due to the efforts of Sergei Ustikov. Norway, had they managed to close it, they were 22, now 23 behind, so no advances from the Norwegians. Mathias Rundgren is on this. He's got to try and get them within 20 seconds. 15 obviously would be preferable, but if they're within 20, I think that Sindre Skor might fancy his chances of running the Russians down.
I think he will, and it will be all go, and that's why the Norwegians have kept such a strong athlete for the last leg, just in case they need to do damage limitation or pull time back. No. Germany going well there. Jonas Dobler really beginning to move up their ranking.
Only 38 seconds down as they go through 12.5, another 7.5 kilometers to go in all. Now, one observation we made in the women's race, Mike, was that the Russian skis were running very well. Do you think that's possibly a factor here as well?
I think it's a factor. We did see it even in the Classic leg for the Russians. Again, on one of the downhill sections, the skis were gliding well, and it's such an important aspect. Normally, the technicians get it all within a very small fraction of a percentage, really. Japan, for me, the biggest surprise there, Patrick. Ranked, well, last time 18th. They're up into 9th position right now.
A little bit disappointed to see Canada down in 13th. They put such a massive investment into the Olympic Games last year. I hope that's not indicative of the fact that they spent all their money on the own the podium program that they had, and not focusing on the future and the juniors. And surely hosting the Olympics is all about the legacy and what you can pass on to the next generation.
I think so. And well, they did make an awful lot of money in selling their gloves and the hats, all the memorabilia. And a lot of those, the profits, if you like, went in towards redeveloping. So I'm sure that Canada will keep it alive. But looking at Russia leading this, they have bought in. I've just talked to a Canadian recently. A lot of the marketing strategies, and they're going to classify their own the program for the Russian development up to Sochi and afterwards.
Or own the podium.
Must be my lack of sleep.
Yeah. So Norway still under pressure from Finland. This is an interesting race for the silver and bronze at the moment. We're waiting to see whether the Norwegians with Rundgren and the Finns with Antti Ujansivu can just close down on Russia. Russia starting to look as though they're slowing now, and Konstantin Kulev, who went off like a whippet on that first leg. The tempo has gone. He's still skiing skate 2, which is an indication that there's still a bit of strength in there.
He is a strong athlete, Patrick. You know that he's suffering, and then all of a sudden he managed to find another turn of pace when he sensed they're closing in on him.
What do you make of the little bounce, that dynamic little explosion at the end of each glide?
I mean, it's a good tactic. It's you're preloading your muscles to explode down, and I suppose it's allowing a little bit of blood flow, recovery through the leg as well when you extend it.
Different technique and higher tempo from Rundgren, who still cannot get away from Finland, and Germany and Austria and France are starting to come back at the two teams in the bronze and silver medal positions at the moment. Lovely technique from Jonas Dobler, and don't forget Markus Wieger of Germany takes the last leg, and he's already picked up 2 medals, so he's a class act, and he'll fancy his chances of running one of those top 3 teams down. Germany only 33 behind. They've got a 16.5-second margin to make up on Finland and get themselves into the podium positions. Italy down in 7th and Sweden behind them.
There's still a lot to fight for here. I'm looking at Germany in 4th place, 33 behind. They certainly have the potential to move up into 3rd, possibly even 2nd place.
Are you surprised that the Swedes have never really dominated since the 80s when Gunde Svan was at his prime?
I'm very surprised. I thought that they would be certainly in 5th at least today at this stage.
So building towards the climax of the junior men's relay, and still it's Norway and Finland fighting for the bronze and silver medal positions. Finland with Hivarinen on leg number 4. Just wondering what Hivarinen can do up against Sky. He's a good skier, certainly, and in fact he's ranked a little bit higher in terms of FIS points, so the Finn could come back and challenge Norway for silver medal position. And if those two teams work together, Mike, maybe they can do something about the lead that the Russians have developed.
Yeah, this has been a great run from Kuliev. He did the brave thing. He knew that he had to run with it to try and maintain this lead, and he's done just that. Yeah,
and the Kuliev, in my ranking, is better than the 4th leg runner Kaitev, who just sets out now. But the one advantage that Kaitev has is he didn't race in the pursuit yesterday, so he's got much fresher legs.
That is a huge advantage when you look at most of these athletes on the last leg did take part yesterday, over 20 kilometers.
Well, that's a very dynamic start from Norway and Finland, but they've got some damage to do. They managed to get the gap from 23 seconds down to 15. Good work from those two teams over the closing kilometre and a half. Austria, Germany still 33, 34 seconds behind. They've missed out. They've lost another 5-6 seconds on the medal positions. So Austria and Germany, great rivals in most sports. They're going to have to join forces now and try and close down on the leading 3.
At this critical stage, Patrick, so important to have your almost your strongest man to catch up, and for Germany I think that's going to go their way with Markus Wieger taking the anchor leg.
Yeah, and I still think Germany might challenge for a medal. They might be able to run down the Finns should they blow a gasket on the first leg. And look at that start. Oh my goodness, Sindre Skor has pushed out of the start like nothing we've seen so far today. It might be too much too soon. Remember, he's still got just over 4 kilometers to go in his bid to close down on the Russians.
Well, it's a long climb out of the stadium, as you say, this first, 900, 1.1 kilometre. And if you punch this too hard, you will suffer next time round, but he is closing the gap.
Yeah, from 15 seconds, he's got it down to just over 10. Just thinking of the World Championships in Liberec in 2009, where Petter Northug again had a 17-second margin to close down on Germany on the final leg. And he did that in the first 2.5 kilometers and then laughed at Germany as he went past.
It's an interesting strategy, isn't it?
Yeah.
You give everything over that first segment, but you do then need to have that opportunity to rest and recover in behind the leading athlete.
And when you go past the leader, you've got to make sure it's a decisive break.
So much in the way of strategy and tactics. I think the Russians have played this as best they could. I think the coaching orders were, you must be well ahead on the second leg, then even more on the third leg.
Yeah, their 2 best skiers going on legs 2 and 3. That's a very interesting tactic for a relay, but it does open up weaknesses on the final leg. Although I think it's not fair to say Denis Kaitev is weak. Just missed out on a top 10 in the 10-kilometer freestyle. He's a good freestyle skier, but has he got what it takes mentally to complete the Russian effort and take the gold medal. We'll get the clock on him, find out what the margin is. It was 15 seconds. It's down to just over 15 meters, and Norway are having a fantastic run at the moment. What will Skar's tactics be here, Mike? He can't afford to sit in behind the Russians for too long because Finland will be back in the picture again.
That is so true, but you just sense that Skar, the way he's attacked from the start, he's on his limit, Patrick. He'll need to back off a little bit, slow it down at some point.
Yeah, half the work done in the first 1,100 meters. He's got to think smart if he wants to win this one, because I would say that he's already raced the sprint out of his legs.
It does look that way indeed. The Russian is very strong though as well, Kachiev. He's not going to give in easily. I thought this would be different at this stage, Patrick. It was 33 seconds, and it's still, well, it's 32. He's just pulled back 1 second, Vega.
Well, maybe he's pacing himself because a sprint in the early stages wouldn't have put any pressure on Russia at all. So Vega might be playing a smart game here, and he is closing down on Finland. He's got 5 seconds back on the Finns, and Finland in bronze medal position at the moment. That was a nice little bit of skiing from Russia's Denis Kaitiev. They lost by 3 seconds last year.
3 seconds, but Skar on the first race here, he won that 10K freestyle by 16 seconds.
I just get the feeling that Russia are starting to pull away from the Norwegians again. That 7.5 second gap looks to have increased to around 8.5, 9. We'll try and get the stopwatch on them as they go past their next feature.
A lot of these lads at this age group, Patrick, of course, doing up to 500 hours a year in training. Try and combine that with an education. It's a huge commitment.
Kaitiev still holding on. Skar's still looking good technically, but you can see how hard he's breathing. There's no, and again, a nervous little look over the shoulder. Well, that's generally regarded as a bad thing, Mike, but the fact that he's left the Finns behind might give him a little boost and say, right, I can afford to really go for this, because even if I blow up, I'm not going to miss out on on second place.
Well, that is a fair comment, but coming back into the stadium, I think he had that fear. He's thought, I've put all my money on the table to haul the Russian back in. It's worked to an extent, but I think he's on his limit now. Sondre Skar.
And Kaitiev seems to have saved something for the last lap. He looks to be in very good form at the moment. What will the margin be? It was 7.5 seconds at the 1.1 kilometer stage. They're coming up to 2.5. Total distance of 17.5 completed. Kaitiev had a look over his left shoulder. He knows exactly where he stands, what he's got to do over the last 2,500 meters.
Patrick, you can just sense the panic now in Kaitiev. He knows that he's going to be absorbed, that he's going to be pulled in. Well, I say that.
6.6. Norway have only closed just over a second in the last 1.4 kilometers. So the work has got to be done on the climb out of the stadium. Once they get to the high point, I cannot see the Norwegians closing more than a couple of seconds. So if Norway are going to win this, they've got to be level at around the 3.6 kilometer stage with just under 1.5 kilometers to go. Germany still gaining, but it's painfully slow. 12 seconds off the medals now.
I'm very surprised, but I do think that Vega has played this very intelligently. I don't think he's gone all out yet. He knows this 2.5 that remains is the most important 2.5 of the race.
Austria with Niklas Lederer seem to have settled for 5th position. A big gap back to France and Italy, who are fighting for the minor places. Sweden haven't been able to stay with the French or the Italians. You made a fan good in the day. Talking over 1,800, that's ridiculous. That's it. It's a good feel. Of course, it went straight away the next day, but that was a good feel where it lasted. Imagine getting 10 of them. Estonia down in 14th. The host nation. A little bit disappointed with the way things are gone. This is the business end of the race, and Russia and Norway are 1 and 2, and the Russians have led ever since the 7.5 kilometre stage of this race. They broke away on the second lap of the second leg, and they've held the lead. They were up to 24 seconds at one stage, but it's now down to under 6 seconds, and Russia trying to hold on with Denis Kaitiev. There is the margin. It's still looking in Russia's favour though, Mike.
It is, with the easier part of the course still to come, and Norway and Skar knows it's so important that he has to close this gap now. He does have maybe a better sprint than Kaitiev, but Kaitiev is fighting so well for Russia.
18.6, just 1,400 meters to go. Finland still looking very smooth in the background, and another little burst of speed from Kaitiev. He's a real fighter. 4.4 now the margin. Now from this point down to the stadium last time round, Norway only gained 1 second, and Skar is going to have to do something extra special if he's going to improve on that. 15.6 for Finland. They've gained a little, but have they managed to stay clear of Germany, who are exactly 30 seconds last time? No, Germany now just 27 and 12 seconds off the medal positions.
Incredible. Well, Vega, possibly his push yesterday to take the gold medal in the 20-kilometre pursuit, it's taken the final punch out of his legs here.
Yeah, I think the very fact that Russia's Denis Kaitiev did not race in the pursuit yesterday, that could prove decisive, and that may well be why he was given the anchor leg.
Well, great strategy, I think, from the Russians. Put your strongest three first, put your perceived weaker man last, and rest him up the day before.
4 seconds behind. Doesn't look as though Skar is making an impression. He's, I think this could actually be the finishing sprint coming in from Skar now, with just over the kilometre to go. Kaitiev still leading. He's got plenty of support out there. The margin, some 20 metres, and Norway are now starting to close as they come to the top of the final climb, and then it's downhill into the stadium.
Skar knows this is all or nothing, and I'll tell you what, he's giving it all, and he has been since he was handed over to.
Well, if he manages to win this one, it will be a massive stepping stone in his cross-country racing career. Here he comes, Norway closing on Russia. Now he has to work out exactly what he does. He's into the slipstream, and it's going to turn out to be a sprint for the title. Remember, Russia losing out by just 3 seconds in Hinterzarten at the last Junior World Championships. Is the same going to happen again?
Well, Skar has just timed this incredibly well.
500 metres to go. They're into the crowd now. They can hear the noise of the stadium. It's all about tactics. Skar is the man who's had to do the work over the last 1,500 metres. Side by side, the Norwegian glide is good, taking full advantage of the slipstream. And here comes a Petter Northug sprint from Skar. He goes ahead of Kaitiev for the first time. He had a 17-second margin to close down, and he's done it painfully slowly, but the pacing, the timing has been to perfection.
So good in the freestyle, the skating technique, Skar. He won the first race here, the 10-kilometre, and he's timed this beautifully.
So the double for the Norwegians with just over 50 metres to go. No response from Kaitiev. Well, he tried so hard. Early celebrations for the Norwegians. Just need to be a little bit careful because the Russians are only a second and a half behind. But it's Norway who get their second gold medal of the day. They won the women's relay. They've won the men's relay. A time of 49.10. That is phenomenally quick for the 20 kilometres. Russia in second, and the Finns, well, they're delighted with the bronze medal. They've managed to hold off the might of the double medal-winning Marcus Vega, who just couldn't get close enough. 8 seconds the margin between third and fourth in the end, and a fantastic race.
Vega was exhausted, I think, there, Patrick, with all his exertions so far. A silver, a gold medal yesterday, just maybe a race too far. And what a disappointment there for Russia. They did everything right until that last 400 metres.
France coming in 5th place, just out-skiing the Austrians on the last leg. This is Paul Galabra finishing off a great effort by the French. Généraux, Tarantola, Jay and Galabra.
And look at Austria, 1 minute behind, and a lot of that time was lost on the last leg. Just didn't quite have the strong forward to keep them up there in the top 5.
Yeah, and worth remembering, Mike, that Austria were in 14th just a year ago, so that's a big improvement for them. They're into the top 6, and maybe next year they'll break into the top 5, maybe even the top 3. Italy looking smooth enough with Francesco De Fabiani, 128 down. Well, the wind picking up, and I guess those out front, those who've been skiing on their own, have had the worst of it. And we still have 2 races to go, Mike. They're both mass starts, the men and the women's pursuit.
Well, and clear, they're always very tactical races, the mass starts, the pursuits. But as you say, maybe that headwind is going to change the shape of the race just a little.
Canada are going to get a top 10 after a slow start, and that's a good recovery from them. Good skiing from Andy Shields. He's taken the last leg for Canada and brought them up into 9th position, beating the United States. That's certainly something that they'll enjoy. Japan 11th, not a bad run at all, ahead of the Czechs, ahead of Kazakhstan. Now, I wonder whether the Kazakh athletes are going to head straight back home to compete in the Asian Games, which started yesterday, opening ceremony yesterday.
Estonia, well, it was 17th last time, it's 14th this time. 2:24 behind, still quite a big margin behind.
Well, there's the Norwegian women's team, who, well, their victory just a little bit easier earlier on. Good tactics by the Norwegian women's team, and they made the break at the end of the 2nd leg. A few twists and turns in the men's race. Good sprint finish coming in from Poland with Rafał Matuszny, 15th place, and a disappointing finish from Switzerland. Really no fuel in the tank for Fabian Schad. Slightly surprised to see that he didn't make a fight of that. And when he sees the replay, he might be a little bit disappointed, because there's always something there if you dig deep enough.
There is. If everything is about that last 10-15 meters, you feel you owe it to a challenge to the line, to push as hard as you can to the line.
Yeah, you have to override the body systems that are saying stop.
That's so true. Anton Snapov here from Bulgaria. They're developing as well. We've seen it in the biathlon. And they're certainly trying to lift the Ukrainian team, trying to develop and raise their game at senior international level as well.
Belarus lost ground very early on in the race, and having finished 9th last time round, they'll be disappointed with this run. This is Alexander Chavel just finishing his run. They've put their best skiers early on, and that's why they've lost so much ground in the closing stages, and find themselves over 4 minutes behind, which in distance terms, Mike, the speed they were skiing today is well, certainly 1.5 kilometers.
So I'd say a little more on this track profile, so quite a margin behind. What a good feel wearing that Norwegian jacket today. The women winning, and the juniors, of course, winning the men as well.
What do you mean today? For the last 2 decades, they've been dominant in Nordic sports, producing champion after champion. And considering they only have a population of, what is it, just under 5 million, it's an astonishing feat.
It is incredible, and they keep on redoing it because of that feel-good. When they're wearing those red suits, they know that they have to provide, yeah. They have to come up with the results.
Well, there you see the top 6. Bill Cockett was who said winning is easy. Staying at the top, or getting to the top, he said, is easy. Staying there is almost impossible. Well, the Norwegians have done both, and they make it look very, very easy indeed. They have done the double here in Otepaa, winning both the junior women and the junior men's relays in some style. What a sprint finish by Sondre Bjornstad Skar to take the victory for Norway. Let's have a look at the top 3. Finland in 3rd place. Good fight of it early on, Mike. Just didn't have the pace over that last leg.
I think they did very well. Previously 6th, today 3rd. They're going to be so happy with that.
Russia, well, they led for 17 of the 20 kilometers. just denied in the last 500 metres. It was a great effort from Denis Kaitiev. He couldn't have done any more. Out on his own. He wasn't the strongest of the Russian quartet, but he saved his efforts from yesterday and produced a great race today, but not quite enough to deny this man. Sindre Scott, the winner of the 10-kilometre freestyle, makes it his second gold today, and I wonder whether it's the team gold or the individual gold that means more to him. I suspect the relay is going to be the one that he remembers.